So I think there are two schools of approaches that different trading system vendors apply. One is to do anything it takes to be as fast as possible, which implies perhaps looking at hardware advances using programmable chips, FPGAs, or maybe even programming against graphic cards, these GPU programs that you may find, or doing kernel level development to optimize your trading system to the fullest. And that's one approach, which is fine. It's going to give you incredible performance, but the downside, of course, is that it makes it hard to maintain your system. It makes it hard to adapt it, because anything you do in hardware or at the kernel level runs the risk of interfering with new developments in chip technologies that is coming out of Intel, or you're doing something in the kernel that breaks a driver for your disk or for your network card or something. So anything you do at that level tends to be expensive to maintain and sustain. So the other approach one can take is to cooperate with one of the networking firms that are providing accelerated network interfaces, where instead you do your whole application in user space, as it's called you're not in the operating system, you're not in the kernel, you're actually a plain user space application, but you get support from advanced network interfaces where even the networking itself is done in user space. So your whole application runs almost standalone on that computer. You get help from the operating system, but you essentially avoid the operating system. So you get access to the hardware, but it's safe because you're not doing anything funky at the kernel level, so your drivers and everything else will work fine, and you can make changes to your code base because it's just a standard Java or C or whatever it is program. So it makes it much easier for you to support customer extensions and adaptations to different regulations, whatever it is. And I believe that approach makes more sense, especially for a vendor where you always must face different needs and requirements from different exchanges, and makes it hard then to lock yourself into a specific hardware solution or a specific driver version or what have you. It just makes your system inflexible, and I think that's a bad thing, and possibly also more fragile. So I think these two schools are really different. I think there's hardly any overlap, and long term, of course I wouldn't know what's going to win, but my guess is that it's not going to be. I think you can do it either way, but internally, sure, doing hardware-specific solutions is probably fine for a big exchange, because it doesn't matter. They don't have to sell it anywhere else, and they can adapt it exactly to their own concerns. Whereas if you have something more general purpose, I think going with a user space type solution makes more sense, because it just long-term, you will piggyback on all new developments in hardware or in networking, and you don't have to change your code base, and that's a good thing, I think. Yeah. So that's definitely two very different approaches to the same problem, and I think both of them will prevail for a while. Long-term, I can't speak for who's going to win. Yeah. There are always trends and hypes, so you have to be careful. Yeah.